Hello Positive Readers, it's Positive Writer here today with another video, and today I'm going to be talking to you all about all the dystopian elements in my book, ITCHIKAN. If you didn't know, I wrote a book. I published it 7 years ago, and it's called ITCHIKAN. It's about a girl named Aurora who is living in the society under the rule of a queen, and this queen, you know, they don't have the best relationship. You know, she's kind of a tyrant. No one really likes her. But no one thinks anything of it until she announces that she's going to create an experiment that's going to basically destroy the world. Aurora, she's like, nah, I'm not going to let that happen. And she is on a mission to stop it. You can kind of guess what happens from there, I guess, just because things never go planned. That's the protagonist, one of them. Today, I'm here to talk to you about all the great dystopian elements. I just mentioned like 5 of them, if you caught them, that are present in this book. Last week, I'm pretty sure I made a video about dystopian elements and what the dystopian genre is. And today, I wanted to come on here and put my own book in the spotlight and tell you all the fun, amazing, iconic dystopian tropes that made it into this novel. Because if you didn't know, 7 years ago was 2014, and now it was 2015. And around this time, I mean, it's so funny because my love for YA dystopians has never stopped, and so I don't take me writing this book as being a part of some type of trend, because you'll see in this video, but this book is a part of a 3-book series, and the first book is the least dystopian of all of them, which is why I wanted to explain these elements that are still present there, which basically are the stepping stones that make the entire rest of the series dystopian 100%. And so without further ado, let's get into these amazing elements that I had to think about a lot because this book's kind of hard to pin down, but I've done it. And so the first one that I mentioned was the ruler, who her name is Queen Jakira, and she is a queen, and she's just bougie because there are 3 cities in this book. It's not a fantasy world or anything, but she just wants to be bougie and call herself queen. So that is what she does. Everyone is afraid of her. And so the first element is really that, like, feared leader, because I think in some dystopians it's like a feared, it's like the people either fear the actual society as a whole, or certain elements of the society, or certain people who enforce those elements. But in this instance, it really is just a person who does have an entire army that backs her up in everything she does, and a right-hand man and things like this. But she herself is just very scary and formidable, which is why she has no problem telling all of her citizens, all of her subordinates, that she's about to destroy the world. And just basically like a ha ha ha, moment, because she doesn't believe that they are going to try and stop her. So she's arrogant, but she's definitely feared by her, her lower people. And again, Aurora isn't really afraid of her. And so that's why she's the protagonist. And so, I think that is an element that I've seen in some dystopians, and I think in a lot of them. This book starts to be fast-paced really fast, right? I'm not really a writer who enjoys staying in the exposition too long. And so, right off the bat, Aurora decides that she is going to choose. And again, at the end of this, I'll explain that a little bit more. But this book is so action-packed. It's about 340 pages, and there's always something going on. If you're somebody who loves those books where, again, there's not dragging, we are flying through, that is this book, and it's one of my favorite elements of the dystopian genre, and Surge by Veronica Roth is the first dystopian I ever read, and I don't think if I had read any other dystopian, it could have gotten me hooked the way it did, because there's a reason why I write it still today, and why I read it still today, and one of those big reasons is because of the action. I adore the way that it's just like dystopian books as a whole are just one of the most fast-paced genres in the world, and I'm so thankful that God allowed me to create a book where it's fast-paced. Every dystopian that is fast-paced doesn't have to be action-packed. By action-packed, I mean people are fighting, people are dying, there are things going on, people are jumping off of stuff, and it's crazy, and there's a lot of action, people are doing things, and that is what this book has in abundance. Right off the start, it is action-packed. And so again, one of my favorite elements of dystopian goes right along with being fast-paced. You do get your times of rest and your times to really enjoy the characters and get to know everybody, but the action is definitely on the front page of this book, and it's one of my favorite things about it. For sure, it's one of the big things that keeps me coming back and rereading it, even though, again, it's my own work and I wrote it 7 years ago. And the next element, I got 10, the next element is that they corrupt authority. that theme in dystopian that's really just everyone fighting authority, everyone subverting authority, everyone thinking that authority is corrupt, authority actually being corrupt. It's definitely present in this book, and in a very interesting way, because obviously somebody who's gonna carry out an experiment that's gonna be the death of the world would not be something that was anything but corrupt. But the difference is that that's not where it stops. Aurora comes in contact with many people who are authority figures that might not have the best interests of the people that they are supposed to be, leading, at their hearts. And so she then chooses whether or not to follow them, whether or not to listen to what they're saying, and whether or not to rebel against their authority, and chooses to all the time. But it's for different reasons. And so again, if you're interested in why people, rebel against authority, and having those conversations, this book has them in abundance on a big series-wide scale and on a smaller scale, and it's in abundance. The next one is that the antagonist is interested in an experiment that is only going to help some other people in this book and in this series. I will not get into it because I want you to read the book, but the experiment that Queen Jakira wants to bring about is it appeals to the darkness inside us all. And so it only really is going to be good for all the people who are okay with that darkness. If you are not, then that by default means that this experiment does not work for you, and Aurora is not one of those people. She believes it's not going to work for her, and so that's why she decides to fight against it. But if you're interested, again, in the fact that, again, dystopians are so often about injustice and what people do when there is an injustice in the world, this book is most definitely the book for you. It has that in abundance, and it's one of those things that I love about dystopians, and so I'm thankful that the Lord allowed me to create something like this. The next element is that it has a lot of moral dilemmas. Like, along with all the corrupt authority thing, it also has corrupt, like, who am I, inwardly, why did I just do that bad thing? Why do I want to do a bad thing? Those moral dilemmas that main characters and just characters as a whole, and obviously people can have. They're present in this book. Aurora is kind of an anti-hero sometimes, kind of a morally great person, kind of unlikable. And so if you're interested in a main character that has those sort of, dilemmas inside her head throughout the series, and, has to come to terms with things like that, definitely, this book is it. Like, this book is for you, for sure. And again, it's one of my favorite things about the dystopian genre. The way it can just call into question everything you've ever felt and thought and believed, and then hopefully leave you with something that you can take and enjoy the rest of your life with. The next one, the seventh one, is that it starts off as more of a utopia than a dystopian. Because I told y'all in the last video and in some videos before that I love it when a dystopian starts off kind of more tame, not so dark and dreary as a lot of dystopians do, and then slowly makes its way to dreary. Slowly makes its way to the war. And that is this book, because this book does not start right off with all the injustice at its head and all that. It starts off very much like tame, like the society that we're living in right now. So just like roleplay for a second, like if somebody that you trust or that you know of that is like the head of your city or town decided that they were going to carry out a crazy experiment, it wouldn't become a dystopian right then, unless everyone decided that they should not let her do this or let them do this. But the thing is that this series is over the course of 3 books, and so we get to see some really bad stuff that happens because of this decision that Queen Jakira makes, but it doesn't happen right off the back. And so if you're that person like me who loves when the dystopians start off a little more tame, something like maybe a Divergent or a Matched, where things seem to kind of be okay, but even though somebody might be in charge, that kind of sucks, but then they really start to become not okay, then this book is certainly for you. Yes, I am just bootleggedly trying to recommend y'all this book. Anyway, number 8 is some decisions really are life or death. There is a vast number of perilousness in this book. Right off the back, the characters go from living normal lives to living in a life or death situation and having to choose life or death and things that will lead them to life or death depending on what's going on. And so again, it's one of my favorite things about dystopian that is rarely present in other genres the way that it's present in dystopian, because and so I think that, again, it's one of those things, and I love it, and I'm glad that I was able to put it in this book, because I love me a world where I'm actually afraid for the character's death. I mean, I'm actually afraid for the character's lives, and again, dystopians is almost the only genre where you can do that, and where, it's not displaced or something, and so I'm thankful that God, again, allowed me to put it in this book, because it's one of my things that I love and hate about it. It hurts, to be afraid for my character's lives, but it is necessary to bring about the change that is needed. The change that sits at the head of every single dystopian novel ever. The ninth one is that it talks a lot about the human condition and what can be done, if anything, about the darkness that lives inside us. Like I said, Queen Jakira is the villain of the story. She is the antagonist. She's cool with tapping into that darkness, which means that she's about to bring about an experiment that appeals to the darkness in every other person that exists in this world. And so this book's commentary is largely about, and will be about for the next 2 books, about how and whether or not we even should want to fight the darkness inside of us, what the darkness even looks like, how it manifests, how we can fight it, whether we can or not, things like this. And so if you're interested in, again, commentary like that, and again, I love it. I love the dystopian genre because it's always talking about something about the human condition, and I love just examining humanism and, you know, how I can be a better human and how we can all be better humans together, a better human race. And so I'm very thankful that I was able to write this book, and it's one of my favorite things to put into dystopian novels, which is what I write, because, you know, it just can be so crazy. But when you bring it back to its like roots, it really is just, bruh, are you going to choose darkness or not, you know? But this book goes to some really intricate and unique places to answer that question. So if you're interested in that, please read. And the last one is that it has a chosen one, but not in the way that you think. This book, Aurora Harris is the main character. It is in first person, past tense, and she is the main character. She's feisty, she's crazy. If you know MBTI, she is an ESTP. She does not take no for an answer. Very similar to the main villain, who is arrogant and doesn't take no for an answer, doesn't like to be questioned by people and things like this. And so this book really just kind of, through Aurora's character, asks that question, you know, while also calling everybody that reads it and that writes it to action. Because it asks that question of, are you going to be the change that you want to see in the world? It's my favorite thing about the dystopian genre. The thing that really just calls to your soul and really questions you. It puts you on that pedestal, on that like mountaintop, and asks you that question. Like, are you going to be that change that you want to see in the world, no matter how scary it is? Are you going to step out on faith and do that thing that's going to change the world? You know, that's going to bring about change. You can hear more about my talking about that aspect of the dystopian genre in my Elements of Dystopian video and in my my love for the YA dystopian genre video. But just quick rundown version, it's my favorite thing about the genre. I love the fact that the dystopian genre as a whole really just encourages people to bring about more change. And this book, this main character is going to make you want to bring about some change, for sure, because that's all she does. That's all she strives for. You know, it's like change is her like middle name, even though she doesn't like to change a lot of the time. And so, again, if you want a beautiful, you know, very flawed, very funny main character, I highly recommend this book. And again, all the dystopian elements I just talked about are present, as well as some other ones that I have not mentioned yet. And so you can find out more about this book by just reading it. And I also will be making more videos about it in the future because I wrote it and I'm proud of it and I want you all to read it too. And if it takes 10 videos, then I'll make 10 videos. But anyway, I love y'all. Aurora loves y'all. Be the change you want to see. I'm going to see y'all later with another video. Peace out.